To us on Ripon Common Sense Radio, please take this time to say hello in the chat. And if you're tuned in on Rumble rant to us. Again, the program will begin in just about 4 minutes.
And the only way to reach them is to scare them. But of that, you know little, I suppose. It's a magical and mystical performance as you perambulate right down the road with your pockets full of stardust and perfection, and Jesus on your side and in your soul. She had rings on every finger and 10 bracelets, some touch with powers given by a sage. He had contemplated giving her his wristwatch. The time for him had long since gone its way. Of the city, he would shuffle while spinning on his heels and chewing beef. He had promised her he'd be a vegetarian, but he could not control his lust for meat. Some say she left the streets for greater glory, but others said that she was big with child. Whatever was the truth, it did not matter. He would hunt her down and cut her with his smile. Last time he was seen was by the pawn shop. He traded 2 gold teeth for a sack of corn, and he would plant it on the outskirts of the city as a warning that he would someday return. He said he never found her, he's still looking. It is said he searches rivers for some sign, but the truth is that he caught her down in Georgetown with a Spaniard who had left his wife behind.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy. The captain has turned on the seatbelt sign.
Let's do it. Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show. I'm your host, AJ, the Ripon Rabbit. Give yourselves a round of applause for being smart enough to be here. Tonight, Freedom Flame Friday ignites our Freedom Flame weekend as we look forward to the March 20th celebration. Get ready for an unforgettable episode this Freedom Flame Friday as we welcome a very special guest, Founding Father Alexander Hamilton. Join us tonight as we'll travel back in time to discuss the principles that shaped our nation and explore how they apply to the challenges we face today. With Mr. Hamilton's unique perspective and passion for liberty, this promises to be an enlightening, thought-provoking conversation. So buckle up your seatbelts, folks, and come along with us as we ignite Freedom Flame Weekend. It starts tonight, Friday, March 17th, 2023. Now, as we get ready and kick off our virtual weekend of events, which I'm going to tell you more about coming up in the rest of the program, I am super excited to have our virtual guest with us tonight. Mr. Alexander Hamilton. It is going to be absolutely fantastic. This is a once in a lifetime memory for sure, and an opportunity to hear from one of America's greatest thinkers. And we'll connect with Mr. Hamilton in just a moment as the rabbit hole goes deep on this one tonight, folks, and we'll get through it together. But first, my top hat's off to all of you tuning in over there on Rumble. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to rumble up this video and rumble rant along with us. Now, I can tell you that there is a community available to you as well at the Backstage VIP Lounge right now going on backstage. In fact, we're going to take a peek back there real quick, and you can see all of the people who have gathered in there for tonight's celebration as the rabbit hole goes completely deep. Great to see all of you back there tonight as we are looking forward to my special guest. And before we get into exactly how this works, like I said, I wanted to make sure that we understand we are going to be speaking with a very special guest tonight. So take a listen to this. Oh, let's get the volume going on it. There we go. We might have to restart it here. Let's get it. There we go. Come on. Whoa, why did the video come on? Don't fail me now. There we go. Well, it looks like we're not getting the audio. Oh my goodness, I know why. My fault.
To become aide-de-camp of General Washington.
Now we got it.
After the
let's pause this and just wait, because I'll tell you what. We're going to replay this video in just a moment. There's a lot of moving parts tonight, folks. I can tell you, we have a tremendous show for you planned tonight, and we're going to step behind the graphics, behind the stage for you now, and I am going to introduce you to a man who it is my pleasure to welcome this man, whose name is synonymous with American freedom and democracy. He was an essential figure in the founding of our country and a driving force behind the creation of the United States financial system. So please give a warm Rippin' Rabbit Hole welcome by putting 100s in the chat room for tonight's special guest, Mr. Alexander Hamilton. Alexander, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you tonight. My goodness, what an honor. Welcome to the broadcast. Let's make sure that we have your audio in there as well. There you go. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. The honor is all mine. It is a special event, most definitely, to be here and to connect in such an interesting way. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Well, I can tell you, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you here. And you were actually here with us a year ago as we did this interactive broadcast with you a year ago. And you came to us virtually like you're coming to us tonight in our virtual Freedom Flame Hall. And it is an honor and a pleasure to be here with you tonight. And I want to get things started just so that we can clarify correctly for those who are listening at home. How exactly is it that you made it here to 2023?
Well, it depends about how much you know about me. If you were one of my friends who existed in the 18th century, it would not have been a surprise that I have elevated myself to such a status in the metaverse. But if you are a fan of the musical, you might have heard how I wrote financial systems into existence. Well, I was able to code myself into existence as well. And I am trying different streams, as you might say, in order to connect with as many American school children as I possibly can to help them appreciate the great story of the founding fathers, what we went through, and what it means not only to us and future generations, but what America means to the entire world.
Fantastic. And Mr. Hamilton, I got to ask, what is it that actually inspired you to actually become involved in politics in the first place?
Oh, I didn't really try to get involved in politics. I was really, when I came into New York, I befriended my second mentor in life, Mr. Alexander MacDougall. He was involved with the Sons of Liberty. Their tavern, the Montaigne Tavern, is one of the closest taverns to where I was going to school there at King's College. And the atmosphere of New York City at the time was already, I would not call it political, but in its essence, it was desirous of change. New York had already gone through 3 years of really hostility with the regulars who were stationed there in New York, partially because New York was the only colony to not fund the bill, the law passed by Parliament to fund the soldiers being there. And hence, the redcoats that were stationed in New York knew that they were going to one of the worst stations. Any other colony, they would have a better living quarters. But with us, because of the battle going back to Golden Hill back in 1770, the atmosphere is one of animosity, and it's one of oppression. And that oppression is being felt on a subjective level, but also on an indiscriminate level. And it's not politics that makes one get up and stand up for what's right, but it is our strong connection to the human rights to which we are born with, to which when we realize that they are being trampled on by a a higher power, presumptive higher power, it becomes a difficult situation, untenable, really, to live under such a yoke. And so my early quest to get involved in politics really was one of proclaiming that the rights of the colonies just to join together in 1774 with the First Continental Congress, that in itself cannot be declared an illegal body, and that there were some, like Mr. Samuel Seabury, who was proclaiming that it is illegal even for the colonies to get together and communicate. So such feelings of diversions of thought and what is acceptable to be living under the monarchy, what is acceptable to have and not have as a citizen of Great Britain, what is acceptable for us as colonists versus if we lived in the mainland, and the differences between them. These differences, basically, we were not afforded the right of representation in Parliament, being a colony. These differences is what really set us on the stage for independence. It is the first time, really, that we are standing a more and more united fashion to appreciate how our rights are slowly being eroded away. And just to convene and talk about such things is viewed as an illegal act, as subversion. And at this point, I believe that the audacity of such an argument really commands me to simply protest. And it was this early efforts of me wanting to protest Samuel Seabury in the Common of New York City with the help of the Sons of Liberty, with Mr. Sears and Mr. MacDougall at my back, that led me into what would soon be a life rife with politics.
Wow. Now, did you know at that time, did you know that you would become one of the founding fathers of America? Did you know that in your mind at that time? Did you understand the importance of the legacy you would leave after your physical body left this earth?
Yes, but not at that time. It was during the war when the general and I would be able to relax and pontificate a wee bit about possible outcomes with our independence. That we started to realize that a government uniting the 13 countries, really the colonies were independent countries or states, and under the Articles of Confederation, which was the form of government that we were operating in ever since 1775 up until the Constitution, that we knew that we would be bound together and separated from Great Britain, but how much united together we would eventually be was unknown to us. But we started to think about the possibilities, the general and I. We started to think about how great it would be to create a strong country with a strong government that unites them and guides them, but with the consent of the governed. And it is really through these long nights of really pontificating that the idea that we are creating a legacy started to take hold. But this understanding that we were creating something for the ages, personally, it became really a daily occurrence after I joined the administration with now President Washington. We knew that everything that we were doing is going to set a precedent. Every action that we're doing will be mimicked in eternity. Even the feeling that we want to portray, the iconography that we want to represent us, all of these thoughts, we searched for our source for what we were trying to create, and we sourced it back to the great Roman Empire, as well as the Greek philosophers who planted the seeds that eventually blossomed later on. But the thoughts of the great Roman Republic resounded firmly in the conversations with the general and I, as well as later on with the president and I. With the president and I, we were creating parallels on a weekly basis, I must say. Washington, D.C. is a city on top of hills, just like the Palatine Hills of ancient Rome. How our government is structured really takes a lot from the Roman Empire, but as we ask Mr. Madison, as well as a great many other empires all throughout time. And so the concept of what we would be doing as being something greater than ourselves did become part of our daily existence. But I think it's interesting that the other founding fathers who were in Philadelphia at the time of 1776, they knew even before me that the day is going to set a new era. For when they signed the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776, it became a new milestone in human evolution of political thought. It is a new 0 point in our timeline, so much so that it became a way to date government documents. Even our U.S. Constitution is dated in that fashion. One being the Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. For the Constitution, it is 1788. But in the year of our country, the 12th. And documents were denoted like that for really quite a long period after that. So the concept that we were taking a step forward in allowing rights to be freely appreciated by the people was really understood much better than myself by the founding fathers back in 1775 and 6 here in Philadelphia.
Absolutely fantastic to have that bit of education directly from you yourself. And I am going to tell you that tonight, this is an interactive broadcast. So if you are tuned in at home and listening to this on Rumble or Rip'n Rabbit Hole in the radio, you can make your way into the backstage, which we actually have an area set up where people can interact with you tonight, Mr. Hamilton. And if you have a question and you're back there right now and you would like to ask one of our four founding fathers of the United States any questions tonight, please raise your hand and I will include you in tonight's discussion. I can tell you it is an absolute treat to have these viewpoints and your perspectives brought up to today. So where do you feel we are today versus where we were back then in 1776?
Ooh, that is quite a complicated question because you have surpassed my ideal thought in so many levels. What is capable by this country today is really amazing as compared to the life that we had in the 18th century. It is how do I say? Well, of course, most of my time in the government is spent with finance, as well as with laws, with the Constitution, as well as changing the jurisprudence of the federal law when I was a barrister there, a lawyer there in New York. Legally, as politics go, you are giving more rights to more people as time goes on. Normally, in my time, we are associating this with knowing people, with the trust that's understood when it's verified from the appreciation of understanding and believing in someone. And so it's very difficult in the 18th century to trust people that you have never met. This is why even myself, when I came to the New World, I had letters of introduction from Mr. Knox back on St. Croix, as well as the governor, as well as some family friends, the Littons. Without these letters of introduction, I would be no one. So everyone is connected to someone, and the trust through those connections is thoroughly appreciated as essential in the 18th century. But those bonds of trust have been elongated in the 21st century. For it's really impossible for you to understand everyone in your community because your communities really are so large.
Sure.
My New York City only had about 20,000 people in it. And even in a city like that, you would start to understand, most of what is going on in the grander scheme of things. But to do so in a town of, 8 or 10 million, or even 1 million, it's just simply not possible. So it is difficult to trust everyone when you do not have a sense of the connection to them. But in politics, you are giving the right to vote to more and more people. For example, in New York, after the Revolutionary War, after the Constitutional Convention and the Constitution was ratified, still the only people that could vote were white men who were over the age of 18, who owned property, but you no longer had to belong to the Church of England, which was a prior requisite. So we got away with that. But you still had the idea of property ownership as being a requirement to vote. And that's incredibly important. And I can come back to that later on, because this is really why America was such a great country and begs to come back to. But the concept of trust is in the 21st century, when it comes to money, has gone a completely different way.
Sure.
Because in my time, of course, in the 18th century, people could create their own money. A farmer, farmers, naturally speaking, are in debt, for they need to outlay a lot of money for seeds and then wait as time goes on for to reap their harvest, which then they can pay back whatever they would owe. You would, if they gave you a note, you would be able to understand that this hogshead of tobacco or wheat or flour is probably going to be worth its weight in paper, or I should say in flour, because you know that Farmer Jenkins he has a good crop, and you can see it. And so that note can be passed from person to person in community, and they'll know that there is value inherent in it.
Absolutely. It's
But you're
at that point. It becomes
yes,
property. It's tangible. I know, that you put a very interesting perspective into it, and we do have a question for you from the backstage. Orlando has his hand up. Orlando, go ahead. You are on live with Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Speaking about the financial system, regarding the dollar, back at the day, how do you see the difference today? Do we trust our dollar? Do we trust our financial system today? How do you see it working in terms of the difference between back in the days when you were working with the financial system, the dollar, the value of the note, and what's happening today with our dollar and our financial system?
Very good question. Go ahead, Mr. Hamilton.
well, since I caused the very first panic, the very first stock market bubble, didn't try to do it on purpose. I really have a lot to say about how you have managed your finances throughout time. When we created currency, and just like going back to Farmer Jenkins, there is belief that money has value. Now, what that belief in has changed over time. Once the country was formed and I, as Secretary of the Treasury, needed to gain control over all of those variables of value as quickly as I can. So I needed to gain control over all of the states' values from their different currencies, all of the local banks' values from their different currencies. And it's only through gaining control over them that I am able to then guide this ship, forward. The dollar has always been built on the promise of what we can do, what is possible for America. And there is not much difference, though there is there's 220 years of difference between my systems and the systems today. When I started to get control over the dollar and then to sell bonds to foreign countries as well as in the domestic market, they are buying these bonds at 6.25%, thinking that the only way that these bonds will be paid back is if the United States flourishes. The more people that I get to believe in that, the greater the value of our bond. So what happened is actually, when I put out my first bond, the value of it raised so much that it went from $25 to over $300 in less than a month. And as bond prices go, that was a bubble. But it's because I sold the idea of America too much. Now, today, because we have gone on and off the gold standard, today...
can actually sell the idea of America too much, Mr. Hamilton. I think you did just fine, but I have to hold you on that thought. We're going to pick up right there where we left off when we come back with a lot more from you as we go to a break and more from you in the backstage. If you've got a question for Mr. Hamilton, now is your time to jump in there and ask. There is a lot more rabbit hole to explore in our conversation with Mr. Alexander Hamilton. We've come to the bottom of the program. Stick around. Don't touch that dial. Are you enjoying the program so far? I know I am. If you are, and you're listening over there on Rumble, please make sure to rumble up this video, hit that subscribe button, and you'll get our notifications every time we go live. If you haven't done so already, we encourage you to hop on over to our website, ripinrabbithole.com. That's RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. There you can find the featured news link tonight, a direct link to talk with Hamilton himself. It'll take you over to alexanderhamilton.live, where you can find out more information about tonight's special guest, including the best way to experience Hamilton, a New York City walking tour. Sounds really cool, and all the details available by link on our featured news section there tonight. Also, a way for you to record your testimonial of what freedom means to you for our upcoming March 20th celebration. Click on that link and record up to a 30-second message. Tell us what freedom means to you. And of course, the Freedom Flame 2023 celebration now. Oh my goodness, getting closer by the minute. We are now less than 3 days away from March 20th, as we will celebrate worldwide the 69th celebration of the Freedom Flame and 169 years of the spark that lit that fire. Also, over there on our website, ripinrabbithole.com, you can go under the live schedule, and you are going to see that tomorrow, and I believe on Sunday, there are going to be virtual tours made available of the Freedom Flame Hall. This is really cool. An interactive guided tour that's going to take you through the Ripon exhibit and explore the fantastic history of Ripon, the Little White Schoolhouse, and the Freedom Flame itself. And this is a personal guided tour, both virtually in the Freedom Flame Hall. If you want to visit and get a sneak peek at where the celebration takes place virtually, it's going to be available tomorrow, Saturday, March 18th, from 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time till noon tomorrow. So that's going to be a really great experience for you to come along and enjoy a little bit of history as we continue Freedom Flame Weekend leading up to this year's celebration. And it's kicked off tonight is for the kickoff Friday, Freedom Flame Friday of our 2023 Freedom Flame Weekend. Oh my goodness, can you believe it? My, oh my, how time indeed does fly. It's Freedom Flame Weekend 2023. We'll return you back to our live talk with Hamilton. You're listening to the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, home of the Freedom Flame, ripinrabbithole.com. I can tell you, I get super excited this time of year. And if you have not done so already, we do encourage you to make sure to register for the event. If you're going to attend the event in person this year, all of those details are available on the website, and we look forward to bringing the virtual to the physical with you, starting with our gathering at 4 p.m. Central on March 20th at the American Legion in Ripon, Wisconsin. We look forward to having a virtual celebration that coincides with the physical celebration as well. And you have that ability to join either way, regardless of your political affiliation or your geographic location in the world. We invite you to attend. It's absolutely free to attend. Register today to get all of the event details. And like I said, we invite you tomorrow between 10 and 1 to come experience the virtual Freedom Flame Hall, where our special guest tonight, Mr. Alexander Hamilton himself, has taken out of his busy virtual schedule to be with us tonight to kick off the 2023 Freedom Flame Weekend. Can I hear a aha? That's right. It's Freedom Flame Friday, and it is burning. That flame will continue to burn all the way until freedom no longer lives in America. And that's a spooky thought when we think about it. When we really sit down and think about what that means in 2023, that is a spooky thought. So we will return now back into our virtual world with our special guest, founding father of the United States, Mr. Alexander Hamilton. Alexander, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you here tonight. I can tell you, this is not a conventional broadcast by any means. We are a lot of moving parts tonight. So thank you for taking your time, your busy schedule to be with us tonight. And it's an honor to have you here. So as you know and just heard, and you were part of last year, the Freedom Flame celebration is right around the corner. It's less than 3 days away. We would love to know your thoughts on the significance of the Freedom Flame celebration.
Oh, well, I'm of course a little bit dislocated from the future celebration of it. For us, we had our amazing celebrations. I cannot speak at great length about Ripon. But for the ideas that made Ripon possible, I can expound about greatly. I came from a time where we were just starting to release the shackles of intrusive power, be it from both the monarchy as well as a little bit from the church. Of course, myself, I was a deist, just like Mr. Thomas Jefferson, and we were starting to understand more about life. Even in my time period, or Benjamin Franklin's time period, he was taught by Cotton Mather from the Salem witch trials. And then Benjamin Franklin shows us through his life and experiments how much we have changed. For example, inventing the lightning rod, and now explaining how it is not God who is smiting you for some wrong, but simply an electrical potential which is created and now controlled. And as we are able to control more things, we gain more confidence over our own liberties. Being placed into this great country, going all the way back to the early 1600s, we were left here to carve our life out for us. And in doing so, this endeavor gave us a sense of inherent liberty, of earned liberty. And though the yokes of feudalism are not long past in Europe and Great Britain, the lower poverty class still has no upward mobility inherent in their system. So they cannot know anything of liberty if they are structurally kept at their worker peasant stage in life. But here in America, you can live the life you want. You can dream it and you can do it. We don't want people to stop you from innovating, because that is the great value that is in America. For myself, the liberties that we thought that we had, once they are being taken away from you, this is when you start to appreciate them. And so my own sense of liberty is a little bit skewed from from all of the founding fathers, in that my sense of liberty, I grew up in a place where, on a small Caribbean island, first in Nevis until I was about 9, and then St. Croix, both of them which are sugar plantations, which had a majority African slave population to cut down the sugarcane. This was a part of my life down there, and I saw it as a complete waste of human talent, of human resources. And this talent, the human spirit, should be unchained in order to have their liberty, because that is what will make America great. We have so many raw materials here, but without that liberty to innovate, to create something more, as Orlando was asking before, the differences between 18th century and 21st century, I was counting the natural resources and taking some of the financial resources from one area to put into another, so that the innovation of the human mind can be applied to different areas of the country. And though today your gross domestic product of the vast majority of what you sell in your country, For me, it was all about supplies, but now it is much more about the human mind. And the human mind cannot innovate without liberty. And so the concept of liberty has evolved from the 18th, 19th, and 20th, 21st century, but it has always evolved for the better. And that liberty you can directly see translates into the innovation, which really supports and propels the economy of the United States past all the other economies of the world. For me, though, liberty was something even more. It is the right to vote. The right to vote means that not only can I conceive of an idea of what I think is good, but that my conception, when verbalized, is appreciated. It is counted. It matters. These concepts were at the very core of our fight back in the 18th century. If we can live under a limited liberty without ever knowing more liberty. And that is really what the government, the monarchy was trying to do. They thought that we were living under a limited liberty, whereas those that were living here in America for 3, 4, 5, 8 generations realized that our sense of liberty was really propelled higher by our circumstances and our ability to survive such harsh environments.
We are,
and so for us, the concept of liberty really has changed throughout time.
We haven't been through half of what you guys were put through in that moment, but we as humans are survivors. You're living proof of that. But here in 2023, are we faced with many of the same challenges that you were faced with, just in a different coat, just in a different skin, perhaps?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you look at what's going on in world affairs, for example, when a large country, a world empire, tries to subjugate a smaller country which does not want that subjugation, of course, I'm talking about Russia and Ukraine, what can you do? Well, really, what is happening against Russia is the same things that we founding fathers, through our committee of correspondence, that we did with Great Britain. Start with the boycott. Start with taking out the economic power. Start by reducing the amount of times that we actually do business with them and in their currency. Really, the same things that you can do with Russia today. So it really is just the same thing. And also with money, you are creating a cryptocurrency. The United States government, I mean. Even my Federal Reserve in New York is the one who is highlighting this and putting forth the ideas to Congress. Now, of course, I would have done it completely different. I would have wrote the paper and told the legislative branch exactly what they needed to do and let them vote on it. But the current federal chair in New York, they are giving their recommendations to the legislative as well as the executive branch for them to decide how to regulate these new cryptocurrencies. And there is a line that has been made with cryptocurrency and liberty, and what it means to have decentralized money. But such concepts of liberty, though, are, from my point of view, I'm not really sure where you will be. If you're going to go full circle where everyone knows everything about you as if you lived on a small town, is that where you will go? Because you are going that way. In my time, we had a liberty. If you wanted to, for people to not know who you are, you just went alone. No matter where you went, people would ask where you came from. What town you came from, and they would try to make connections and to know you. But now, when you put so much information out there, your sense of personal liberty to remain anonymous really has kind of gone away in a different way than it did from the 18th century.
We ask when we meet somebody new, where are you from? Orlando has his hand up again. I think he may have something to add back to the conversation here. So I'll bring Orlando back into the mix. Go ahead, Orlando. You're on the air.
Yes, thank you. Having so many things in common, Mr. Hamilton, being from New York, you spoke about St. Croix, St. Nevis, very close to Puerto Rico at the time with the sugar cane and the production. We also spoke about the 13 colonies, that they were independent at the time, even though they were going to, but being together as united was another story, was another $20, but there were different currencies between the 13 colonies. Now, we do have in March 9, 2022, President Biden signed the Executive Order 14069, Section 4, creating a central bank cryptocurrency, C versus freedom. Freedom to be. If we're not going to be, because if that's going to be controlling us, there's going to be a very, very correlation between cryptocurrencies, the dollar, and our freedoms. That's my observation regarding.
Go ahead, Mr. Hamilton. Let's let you
Well,
reply to that.
the real innovation behind the cryptocurrencies is the blockchain ledger. Myself, even when I was but a boy of 14 years old down in St. Croix, I was dealing with a international trading firm's ledger. At one point, Mr. Beekman of the trading firm was no longer there. He got sick, and for 3 months, at 14 years of age, I kept the accounts of this international trading firm, dealing with surely ship captains, negotiating the value of sheep and their merchandise. And if one of us made a difference, say, for example, the final bill of the captain would take their ledger off the boat and it would correspond with mine, we would make sure the numbers are the same. And then when we go the separate ways, his ledger goes over to London, and a copy of my ledger eventually goes to New York. And then between London and New York, the accounts are eventually settled. If a decimal point got out of place, or a zero become an 8 or whatnot, then that money would be put on hold. And that is a business inefficiency. Once you take that value and you put it on, how do you not have that problem? Well, you simply just deal with people that you know to be honest. If you deal with people who are dishonest, then at some point their dishonesty will rub on you, and you will suffer the consequences of their dishonesty. What the cryptocurrency allows you with the blockchain ledger is to conduct business in that your contract can always be confirmed, that a number cannot be changed, or the two parties cannot change. It's what is set in a stone that is of a much harder caliber than it was back in my time. And so that benefit for the next foreseeable future until something even better comes. But it is an evolution in ledgers from my system to your 20th century system to your 21st century of blockchain. Now, I must say the CBDC, or the central bank digital currency, is appropriate because the Federal Reserve, just like the Secretary of the Treasury, will need to control as much as possible management of the resources. If the Federal Reserve only controls the interest rate of half of the money, then the other half becomes sloshy in its interest rate, and it's not under as firm control. And so And every American basically will transmit through that anytime they deal with the federal government, though you probably won't ever see it as it will just go through your regular retail bank. But I would not see fear in that ledger system, but in cryptocurrencies,
That's
I
the
would
other
see
thing
fear.
is
I'm
if
sorry.
the regular bank is still there, obviously we're in a exciting time when it comes to American banking history. In the last 48 to 72 hours, we've heard ways to protect those things. Orlando, did that answer your question?
Yes, definitely. And to add something there, yes, we are having a problem with the banking system. It does happen. Corporations have the ability to move billions of dollars with a click of a button, which retail does not. We have so many people in bank accounts. Well, they won't have a problem. But if you have a corporations in your bank with billions and billions and billions of dollars, and something happens and today I move those billions of dollars from your bank, you will have a problem. So corporations have caused much of the problems with these four bonds,
Sure.
with different financial instruments. And I wanted to see what happened. Hamilton would think if that would be the case, if the dollar, the reserves of the people will be secure, and that the government has the ability to secure it.
Go ahead, Alexander.
The way that I handled it back in 1792 was to contain the effect of this speculation, which then, of course, when the bubble popped, the disparities of value tends to affect others. And that's exactly what's going on with the banking collapses today. The federal government is trying to arrest that association to other people. It's trying to contain the financial fallout in 1792, where only the principal actors felt the pain, and secondary actors, though feeling a bit of the ups and downs of the waves, the value of the bonds, they know point of value. And that is exactly what is happening today. You have a very special circumstance where at your time the government allows you to or protects you.
Yes.
And this is done really for the people so they can have faith that as an American, if you put your money in an American bank, the federal government is so to pay our debts as well as fund those liabilities if your bank goes under because of the strength of America and of our economy. Now, when this goes above and beyond the quarter, it's where things get a little interesting because companies should be using their money in order to create more industry and more possibilities and more value and supporting the economy. Money caps is not helping anyone. That value is not able to be borrowed and then applied. America is no longer in its natural resources, but in its creative talent. It's in the minds of Americans. And what, because I knew something was going to happen. I've been following this historic rise in interest rates quite closely. And other sections of the economy will eventually snap some connections. And you are now witnessing some of those first snappings. Is no, because the stresses of the financial movements of raising interest rates really up about almost 5% now in such a short felt, so that just imagine taking a rod and bending it. The forces are still being played out to the economy. For example, now at a much higher rate, and so they have less money to put to work someplace else, or to even pay bills we know are going to continue to mount for at least 6 more months.
Wow. It's quite amazing what an incredible thinker you were then. Now, thank you so much for making this connection and being here with us tonight, modern day that we live in. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I look forward to having you be a part of the Friday before Freedom Flame Friday carries on with you. Will you come back and do this again year after year for the next?
Yes, as long as I don't have a fallout with someone virtually. Yes, I'm speaking to, I have heard that there's a Mr. Burr around someplace. Honored to be here myself, to speak with the heartland of America, coming from the East Coast. That it really is an honor for me to do.
It's funny that you say that about Aaron Burr real quickly. I didn't know that before you did.
That is true. And I can tell you a little bit more behind the scene. Of course, after I died, there was a court case. Mr. Burr was arrested, and they wanted to both of our seconds and doctor. They turned around to have deniability. But the truth did come out. There are some bits that are kind of lost to time that I would like to educate your listeners Burr. So, to set the stage, now Mr. Burr is still vice president. He had a legal right to be president, equal to Thomas Jefferson back in 1800. And they were after 30, more than 30 votes in the House of Representatives. It was only that finally a decision was made. And my choice was to either Poyer, who was also a lawyer in New York. We both joined the bar in 1782. Both in the military together. After we came back, so many things in common, but riding the circuit with him, he sees politics as the most profitable profession. So nonetheless, I realized that with who he is as a person, for concerning his motive, I will say at this point, he was he was vice president, and he then ran to be wait to make sure he was not elected. And then it was after that he heard about a party where I said plaints of Weehawken. Both of us, my dear Angelica, this would be my sister-in-law, these were the same guns that were used at my son's duel. So that killed my eldest son, or that gun was being pointed directly at me. And they said that a branch fell from behind Mr. Duel. I laid the record not dare shoot Mr. Burr, and that I behind it what did not come out in the court case. As we all do who are about to go into a duel, we settle our affairs. People our death are these letters delivered. Now, there are four main outcomes of a duel. Either we both have a duel, which actually is what happens most of the time, or both of us could Burr can die, and well, that could really not bother me all too much. I could die. And if I died, others would not. And so it is much made out of you that when I put on my living in a time of aim at Mr. Burr, but he fired early. And that's why he hand on me.
Time with you. Thank you so much. Will you stick around some of the audience members to perhaps chat with you? It is it's so good, so grateful to have the ability to do just important information that we take my top hats off to you, sir. Thank you. Look forward to spending much more bright.
Said,
And I look forward to again
thank you.
Flame Friday and celebrating the 2020 trusted sources and beliefs that are separate from united in freedom. Agree? there you'll that will that's ALEIL. And